Hey y'all, welcome back to Nini's Texas Kitchen. Today we're gonna make a Tarte Tatin, which is a French upside down apple pie. So what you have to do first is make your caramel base, and then you pour it into a deep round cake pan. Your crust for this dessert is actually puff pastry. And I'm making this because I have puff pastry left from my video where I made custard tarts a couple of weeks ago with puff pastry, because you can freeze puff pastry and keep it for several weeks. So I'm going to use it today. So what you have to do first is make your caramel. So you need 1 cup of sugar and 6 tablespoons of water. To make the caramel, you have to do it in a stainless steel saucepan. So I'm going to put my sugar in my pan, and then I'm going to add water. Now, what you want to do is turn your heat on to low heat first, and you're going to stir at this point to dissolve your sugar. Once your sugar is completely dissolved, then you take your spoon out and turn the heat up and let it boil until it turns into a honey straw color, okay? And once it does that, then it's ready, okay? So we're just gonna do this for a few minutes and let it start boiling. We have to turn the heat up once the sugar dissolves. So when it gets to that stage, we'll come back and show you. All right, y'all, so it dissolved, and then I turned the heat up and took my spoon out, turned the heat up so that it would start changing. So now you can see it's starting to get that honey caramel straw color to it. So I'm just gonna let it go for another few seconds. Once it's completely evenly that color everywhere, and then I'll pour it into my pan. And then I have to let it sit and cool. It's important not to overcook your caramel because you don't want it to get bitter. And I think it's done. See the color? Now we'll just let it sit and cool. Now what you can do to make sure that you get the caramel out of your pan is fill it with water, and you can put it back on the heat. And that'll help boil it off, but I'm just gonna leave it sitting there for a little bit, and I can do that later. So the next step, now that my caramel is done, and while it's cooling, is I got to peel and slice my apples. So, the recipe calls for 4 large eating apples. So I have Granny Smith, but mine are not large. They're small to medium. So I'm gonna do 6 of them. So we'll go ahead and I'm gonna peel these, and then I'll show you how we layer them into the bottom of the pan. So we'll be back. Okay, y'all, we're back, and I finished peeling and slicing my apples. So when I slice apples, in order to make sure that they get done completely when I'm making some sort of apple pie, is I slice them really thin. See how thin that is? Like real thin, okay? So to make this, the next step after you've let your caramel set aside to cool is you need to rub butter all on the sides of your tin, making sure that you don't get it down into the actual caramel itself. All right, so that's done. Now the next step is to make it pretty. You take your apple slices and you're gonna lay them like so on your caramel all the way around. and you just keep going around until you cover it. So if you broke some, just make sure that you get the whole pieces for this first layer. After your first layer, you're just going to take the rest of them and spread them evenly over the others. Okay. Like this. And you keep making layers around the center, too. Okay, now I've got my apples in the center in a layer, so then I take the rest and I just put those on top, because these are going to be like your middle layer, like this. And you buttered the inside so that they won't stick to your pan when you cook. Now, I've been letting my puff pastry chill. So the next step is I'll get a little bit of flour to sprinkle on my surface. And then I have to roll this out into a circle about an inch bigger than the circumference of my pan. And I want it to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. So roll it. It's cold because I've been letting it chill. Puff pastry, so it wants to stay cold because it's got butter in all of the layers. To make it puff up when it bakes. So if yours is too cold, just do what I'm doing, stretch it out a little bit. And you can actually see my little pieces of butter in there, see that? So it's thin. Now I'm not going to worry about it being a perfect circle, because I'm going to lay it in here like this, and then I'm going to tuck my edges down like so, kind of tucking them under and down on the sides of the apples like that. Now, I'm going to take a knife cut a little hole in the center, because apples are moist and you want an escape hole for your steam. All right, now it says to bake it at 425 degrees convection, or if you're gonna do it regular oven bake, 400. And we're gonna bake it for 35 to 40 minutes until our pastry is nice and golden brown and puffing up. And then we'll test our apples. And if they're ready, then we'll immediately invert it onto our serving dish. So here goes. Let's see what happens. All right, and you want your puff pastry chilled because you don't want your butter to melt out too fast whenever you're baking it. So we'll be back when it's ready. All right, y'all, we're back. And our apple tart tatin is done. So what I did was I took the big pan, it was on that baking sheet, and I put my serving tray over the top, and then I inverted it, just like you would do if you were doing a pineapple upside down cake. So it's got the puff pastry on the bottom now, and any caramel sauce that you had left in your pan, you just scrape it out with like a wooden spoon and put it over the top. So now it's time to taste it. So cut down through your puff pastry. And everywhere I've seen says that people often eat these with some ice cream or whatever, but we're just gonna taste it. Still steaming. Perfect. If you like my video making the French apple tart tatin, please like my video, share it to others, and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to go watch my other videos. We'll see y'all next time in Nanny's Texas Kitchen.